Hi, and welcome to the video tutorial where I'm going to be explaining to you the difference between themes or theme statements as we call them in our class and thematic elements. So if we start right here at the top of the page, so I'm looking at what the difference between a thematic element and a theme is. On the top of your little booklet on page 8, a thematic element is usually a one-word overarching kind of idea or motif. A motif is just an idea that kind of repeats itself over and over in a story. So really what you're used to seeing as themes in French class is what we would call thematic elements here in our class today. So thematic elements like love, hate, death, friendship, these one-word ideas, we call them thematic elements. Now, we call them thematic elements because they're elements that you build together and enrich to create a theme. So right now we're down here, theme. And if you just read the definition, a theme is a phrase that expresses the author's view on the mentioned thematic element. So it's a philosophical thought that can be applied to many different situations, or it's a worldview. So for example, a thematic element, or back to thematic element, a thematic element in Romeo and Juliet can be love, right? But if we know the story, as we know in the story of Romeo and Juliet, the theme, well, one of the apparent themes is that love does not conquer all, right? So it's a statement, not necessarily a full sentence. It can be a full sentence, but not necessarily. But it is a complete idea that can be applied to many different situations. It's kind of like the moral of the story, although I do have the reservations on calling it a moral of the story. But it's definitely the author's perspective on some of these smaller one-word ideas. Okay, so according to Shakespeare, love exists in the world, fine, and the theme that he's trying to get us to learn after we've read Romeo and Juliet is that, unfortunately, love does not conquer all, or hate is more powerful than love because hate causes Romeo and Juliet to pass and not manage to live together. The assignment that you guys have to do today in class is to take the thematic elements that I've put onto pages 8 and 9 and kind of build them up into themes. This is not an easy task, but I do have a complete example. If you look at over here, if you look at war. So the example with war. War is a thematic element present in Romeo and Juliet, in I Am Legend, and the quote I've chosen to illustrate the theme, so the quote is acting here as kind of like my evidence that I'm using to prove this theme. I found in the story that Neville at one point mentions to his wife, they say that we won the war, and then he concludes, nobody won the war, the mosquitoes won the war. So from this quote, I can kind of deduce that the author is trying to get the reader to understand that war is destructive and futile and doesn't benefit anyone. So this sentence down here, war is futile, destructive, and benefits no one, that's a theme. War, by itself, is a thematic element. Okay, and if we read the whole paragraph here, you have just my justification for it as well. So the thematic element is reflected in a brief exchange between Virginia and Robert, in which Robert reflects that they say that no one wants the war. He concludes that nobody won the war, mosquitoes won the war. So just as the war that devastated the world left no winners, Robert's daily battles with vampires and the mutant vampires' violent assault on the weaker vampires likewise has no winners. The constant fighting takes its toll on Robert, and even though he's winning, the population is declining. And I'm not going to give you the spoilers, but if you finish reading that paragraph right there, you kind of get a little inkling to the end of the story. Now, for your task, you don't have to make a whole justified paragraph like I did. I want you to take your thematic element, like prejudice, use the quote that I've given you. I've already found the evidence in the text that you can use to build up into a theme, and just write a theme statement down here. So this sentence type thing that explains to us the author's perspective about the thematic element. So what is Richard Matheson trying to teach us about prejudice? Use this sentence right here and what else you know from the story to create a statement so we can figure that out. I want you guys to go ahead and do this, as well as the same task for the thematic element of isolation and survival, and science and the supernatural. And I actually suggest that you start with isolation and survival because the one about prejudice is a little bit more challenging than the one about isolation and survival. I also suggest that you check up the word felled in the dictionary. It might help you analyze that quote a little bit better. Alright, so thanks for watching the tutorial. Please note that this is really important because we do have evaluations on this topic early on in this semester, so take this seriously. I'm going to be reviewing this in class, and I do want this to be completed. Alright, thanks a lot. I'll see you later.